it's been such a surreal journey because obviously for me, when I transitioned from playing to coaching, I just knew that when I decided coaching's for me, or when I decided that I was going to stay in this game, and I didn't actually see what I'm doing now.
Ice is ready, and we are back with another episode of the Empty Netters podcast, brought to you by BetMGM, and we've got a special interview for you today.
Dude, I wanted to do, like, last time you were like, it's smashing.
Yeah.
And I was like, is there like a spunking interview that I could come up with, but I don't know that there is.
You love the puns.
Well, it's
You
just
could have gone
fun.
like this after we say who it is. You could have said, and now let's crack on with the interview.
Ooh, see, that's nice. See, that's really nice. I was also just thinking about going like, this interview's got spunk.
It does.
This interview has got spunk.
If you haven't figured it out, a member of the Seattle Kraken is joining the pod today, but a very special one. Assistant coach, first female assistant coach in NHL history and AHL history. Heard of her? Jessica Campbell joins the Empty Netters podcast. I have not been this excited for an interview and a podcast in a long time.
Oh my God, same. As longtime listeners, I hope know. First-time listeners, welcome.
Yep.
As longtime listeners, I hope know we put a lot of time and effort into curating an interview for that person and like digging into their life and looking stuff up and asking their friends and our friends, et cetera, et cetera. Learning more about Jess before we interviewed her and then certainly during an interview was a joy.
Absolute
joy.
Yeah, can happily say we love Jess. This was so fun. We'll kick it to the interview now so you can enjoy. Have a blast.
All right, we are thrilled today to be joined by a Rocanville, Saskatchewan native, a three-time ECAC champion, a World Championship silver medalist, a U18 gold medalist, a U18 MVP, a Four Nations gold medalist, the first rookie ever to captain an all-star game in the CWHL, a Clarkson Cup champion, and the first female assistant coach in NHL history. Jessica Campbell, welcome to the Empty Netters podcast.
Let's go.
You just made me sound so much cooler than I am.
See, I don't know.
Disagree.
I disagree. I think you are that cool. And here's the
Wow.
thing. We didn't even talk about the Battle of the Blades in that
Yeah, I didn't
intro.
even talk about the silver
So
medal
we're going to
in the
get
Battle of
into
the
that right now and talk about how you are a runner-up in
As
the
long
Battle
as
of
we
the
don't
Blades.
pull up footage, we don't want to see that footage again.
Can you tell us about that?
Oh, man.
How was that? Like Yeah, give us the details.
You guys, I was just telling Chandler Stevenson about COVID and how weird COVID was and how I ended up on a figure skating show. And he's like, wait, what? You were on Battle of the Blades? And I was explaining to him the whole production. And yeah, it was insane. I mean, once in a lifetime, literally.
Yeah.
COVID presented the opportunity. I went into that whole thing with like completely an open mind of I could probably become a better skating coach if I do this. I've never skated on figure skates in my life. Like the true Canadian, like born with hockey skates on my feet. Like the F word in our household was figure skating as a young kid. So like we didn't have the option. I was ultra girly as a little girl too, loved dresses, and like I would never been able to convince my mom to put me on figure skates.
Wow.
So to go and do that show for charity, I was totally sold. But because it was COVID, like I was more beaten up after that show physically than I've ever been in hockey.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. After 4 months of figure skating.
Wow.
What a stat. Also, when did because I know they did. When did the competitive juices kick in? Like before, at first it was
Good
like
question.
it's for charity and it's fun. And when we're in the final, when were you like, I'm winning this damn thing?
Well, Chris Versteeg started chirping like the second episode in, I think. He was like, we're making this real.
Yeah.
And so then he started chirping and I'm like, okay, then we're in hair and makeup. Then I started chirping him.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it got pretty competitive pretty quickly.
Did you?
But I don't know.
Do you feel like you liked it maybe more than you thought you would have?
Honestly, I'd be lying if I said I didn't like it. Like it was, now we're talking. So it was it was something that was so incredibly challenging to do, like both mentally and physically. Like I just like imagine me challenging you to like you're going to learn the grand piano, but in 4 days you're going to go
Yeah.
on Canadian national television in front of your grandmother, all of like even your clients, your athletes are training, all these players you coached, like, and you're going to put on a figure skating dress. You're going to have to dance with a partner who's going to lift you over their head. You have to smile and look pretty while you do it, like every 4 days.
Yeah.
So that was like the challenge of what the show was in itself was insane. But it was also super fun because it was so hard and taxing. And I don't know, it's kind of a blend of like my athletic and feminine side that is kind of like being able to like embrace all of it in such a like foreign world, and doing it for charity made it like actually really special because you could kind of like, you're competing, but you're also
Yeah.
like, this is for fun. We're raising money. And yeah, I was skating for youth mental health for DIFD, which is Luke Richardson's his family's foundation for his daughter, the head coach there in Chicago. And I grew up going to college with his daughter. So like everything full circle, like it was special to do.
Absolutely. I mean,
Crazy, but special.
Yeah, like that's one of those once in a lifetime opportunities during a crazy time. You got to take the reins. Why not?
yeah.
It's amazing. Chris went down your whole hit
Yeah.
list, and I want to talk about college. But before we get into the insane success that you girls had at Cornell, how did you end up at Cornell? Being a Saskatchewan-born hockey player,
Prairie girl, yeah.
you end up all the way over in Cornell. What was that process like? Did you have a bunch of schools that were kind of knocking on your door? Did you have ones that were at the top of your list and then maybe Cornell came in the last second? What was that decision-making process like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, the rules have changed a million times, as we know within
Yeah.
the NCAA, of when you can like talk to make calls, your first call, then you can do your official visit, all those things. But recruitment was like a little bit more normal back then when this is in 2000 and gosh, 10, 2009. And so once that September or July 15th, whatever date it was, I can't even remember, but of my like junior year in high school, they could officially make calls or call you. And so up until then, I was receiving letters from honestly a lot of schools, Ivy Leagues, the top NCAA program. So it was kind of like at that time I was in a good spot to kind of create my own path of where did I want to go, and had a lot of options. But I worked really, really hard in school, took a lot of pride in my academics. So it's kind of like if I can go Ivy League and get the best academic and hockey blend, I want to do that. So pretty quickly, it came down to Harvard and Cornell. Like I thought I was just going to go to Harvard because when you get your first like letter in the ninth grade from Harvard, you're like, I'm going to Harvard.
Yeah.
Princeton was in that conversation, but I'll say this. My head coach, Doug at Cornell, total rock star, unbelievable coach, unbelievable human. He called me every week. I think they had 7 days between that they could call. He called me on the minute, scheduled every week.
Wow.
To like my household landline. Like no one had cell phones, so I didn't have a cell phone, I guess. But I remember my mom's like, he's calling again,
Yeah.
calling again, to a point where I was like, this guy, I love him, I respect him, but I was so annoyed. I'm like, he won't stop calling. And then honestly, 2-3 months into the process, I'm like, I need to go to this school. This coach, like, he desperately wants me to come to this school. And in, I don't know, have you been to Ithaca, New York?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
obviously like,
Oh yeah.
it's its own special place. And the school is like this little, it's this big world in this little place. But you're in like the Cornell bubble. And so of course, naturally, he scheduled me the very first date that I could go on a visit. I went to Cornell. He made sure that I was stepping foot on Cornell
Amazing.
land the very first chance I could. So my first official visit, I had a couple teammates from Hockey Canada that were there, that were Saskatchewan players. So I kind of had some familiarity with the team. But after I finished at Cornell, I toured Harvard next, and I was in the heart of Boston, or arriving just in the craziness of Boston. And I'm like, this small town kid needs to go to Cornell. Like,
Yeah.
I need to connect into 3 different
Cool.
airports, go crazy trying to get here, make sure my family can't come visit me, go the furthest away from home, like all the things that like would be typical of growing up in Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
go to the most remote place. anyways, it was totally the right decision. I ended up canceling. Sadly, I canceled my visits to Minnesota and Wisconsin, and that's another story. But Cornell, it was first one and done.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, that's like, take notes, coaches. That's how you recruit.
Yeah.
Like, props to Doug. That's just beautiful stuff.
Jess, when I almost went there, and when I was on my visit, the team and the coach and all these people were like, yeah, in the winter, some kids take the trays from dining hall and like sled down the hill for fun. And I was like, oh yeah, all right, I'm actually going to leave here. But they have their own little bubble there, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
they have such a good time. Yeah.
I also really love. Or go on, Jess. Go on.
No, I was just saying, and like the culture of all of the things that are specific, like that's totally like that's a recruiting story for sure of all the craziness that happens, which is like because the insanity of Cornell is you're like stuck within your bubble.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. And you go to other sports games, and the men's hockey experience is like that's its own
chaos.
Breed. But go ahead, Dan. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, now talking into your success, obviously you win the ECAC 3 times, freshman year, junior, and senior year. Unbelievable. Going out senior year with the ECAC championship's amazing. But I love with your story specifically, it sounds like it came down between Cornell and Harvard. And it's a nice cherry on top, scoring the game-winning goal against Harvard your junior year to win that ECAC championship. Like, that's the moment where you're like, fuck yeah, I made the right choice. Fuck you, Harvard. But you guys, obviously, I mean, you had so much success. 3 out of 4 conference championships. Obviously never got over the hump with the Natty, but you had great runs. That insane game against BU, overtime, 8-7.
Triple OT, right?
Triple OT, was it? Yeah, and like you guys were down so much and then up so much. I mean, holy moly, that's unbelievable. So, overall, both your time there with your friends, with your teammates, and just, I love that it sounds like you cared about academics. What do you have to say about Cornell? Like, was that just that picture perfect 4-year experience where you look back going, I couldn't have done or wouldn't have done anything differently?
Yeah, I think honestly, and I wholeheartedly believe it, I would do it all the same way over again if I could. I think it was the best place for me. I studied communications, and like now I use my degree every day. Yeah. Like, that was kind of the whole point, was like, for me at the time, women's hockey was not in the place where like I could potentially foresee being able to do this professionally. Like I was still chasing the national team goal and all of that. But beyond that, it was like, okay, well, part of the decision was like, I've worked so hard academically, like I'm trying to set myself up for success later in life and what makes the most sense. So to be on a good hockey team, to have great coaches that ultimately did get me to the senior team, it was just like the perfect, full 360 degree, support, and everything kind of was aligned perfectly. But I will say this, I gave up a lot of probably fun weekends having to be in the library. Like,
you don't hear that from hockey
I will say this.
Often.
Yeah, I would like, if I could take back some of those, I would have probably taken back some Sundays and had a little bit more fun. But
I mean, come on, Jess.
You can always make it up.
D stands for degree. People need to hear that. It's the same thing.
Absolutely correct.
Totally.
What's your favorite, when you look back on that time, what's your favorite game? Because you were in some doozies. What's your favorite game from Cornell?
Probably the one you just said, like that U8-7 game. Like, I won't forget that game for so many reasons. We came out, I want to say in like the first 5-10 minutes, we were down 4-0.
Yeah.
And we're hosting that game, and like they had superstars on their team too, like Marie-Philippe Poulin and Jen Wakefield. They had some rock star players that obviously, and we had a stacked roster too. But so it was literally like Team Canada dissected into 2 different teams and like playing against each other. Like that's literally what we were plotted against. So the fact we were down 4-0 in the first whatever, and our starting goalie was in, and I scored a shorthanded goal in the last minute of that first period, and we went in 4-1, and then the rest of the game was like, we scored 2, they scored 1. We scored another one, they scored 1. We scored 2. It was like back and forth, and so many people commented on that game like that was the best game in women's college hockey, and then all the critics were like, that was the lack of goaltending, the worst defense we've ever seen.
Come on.
But right till the very end, triple overtime, and in fact, now that you say this, you know the Cornell, line of total energy atmosphere. The men were playing right after us. We had back-to-back rescheduled games. So all their fans had trickled in. So we had the full packed arena with like the newspapers and the whole crazy shebang of the fan base. So like coming into triple overtime, it was like the most surreal environment I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, that's
Like we were so gassed. I'll never forget how we felt in the locker room. We were celebrating. Our feet were up on our stalls. Our legs were up because we had nothing left. And she was one of my favorite teammates. She didn't play much in the game. But come third overtime, like coach needed her to play. Obviously, like no one had anything left. I just remember her hopping over the bench, and it was like she was like Connor McDavid out there.
Yeah.
Everyone was moving so slow, and she was flying. And anyways, by the time like when we won that game, I fell. Like I was on the ice for the winning goal. I like fell at the blue line. And there's like an awful clip of me like swinging my stick, and I like somehow the puck goes into the neutral zone. Our defenseman goes end to end and dangles another defenseman on the national team and puts it in the net. Like it was absurd.
Yeah.
But to be on that side of it, it was unreal. So I'll never forget that.
Yeah,
to take us to the Frozen Four too.
Yeah. How is that not
Dude,
your favorite
best
game?
night
Like
ever.
that is
Best night
so
ever.
electric. Holy shit.
You were talking about Team Canada experience, and you've had many chances to wear the national team jersey now, which and got a lot of hardware out of it too, which is fantastic. And I have a few questions for you, but my first one, if you don't mind talking about it, can you just say a little bit about what it means to you to even put on that sweater, considering you had tried out a few times, like you were saying, you had that support system, didn't get picked, and then you finally get picked for the senior team in 2014 on the anniversary of your brother's passing. Just talk about the emotions of all of that for you, if you would.
Yeah, of course. I mean, oh, it's so crazy. Like, this, like in your adult years, you can always like connect dots backwards, right? But in the time, like nothing ever really makes sense, or things are happening and aligning and all different reasons. And I strategically went to Cornell for a reason. And part of it was something we didn't talk about. The head coach sat me down on my recruiting visit and said, "What are your goals beyond college?" And I said, "I want to make the national team. And I want to, pursue a great career someday." But he said, "Okay, great. We're going to have a fantastic college career, but I'm going to help you get to the national team." And so like over those 4 years, I kept getting invited back to the senior team. And I was with the U22 and the U18, and I kind of like peaked early, I think, in my years. Like I was, a top player at U18s, and then was a pretty good player through college, but I peaked really early, I think. And so it was kind of trying to find ways to like almost unlock areas of my game through those 4 years of college to then eventually like be a player that could crack the senior team. And so though I was like getting cut year after year, I was going to camp and you kind of get sent home with the same message, like you're not there yet. And I kept like, going back and working at it. And then so after I graduated college, I sat down with my coach, same thing. And he's like, "What's next?" And I'm like, "I don't know if I should go for it or not." And he's like, "What do you have to lose? Like, go for it one more year, go to camp, go in with that mentality. Like you had a fantastic, 2 last years. I think you're right where you need to be." And so I honestly like shift my focus on the like when is it going to be for me? And I went in completely into camp, just had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And if this was my last crack at it, and I played the best I ever played at camp. I was scoring. I was showing up the way I wanted to show up. And so crazy enough, like when I got the call Thanksgiving weekend, I was back home with my family. Usually we tried to, obviously it's a difficult time of year, we tried to get together for Thanksgiving, and I'll never forget it. Like when I got the phone call, and I can't even remember exactly what was said. I almost like blacked out. I was just so overtaken by every emotion, and that was it. That was ultimately the goal. And I didn't obviously crack the Olympic roster, but to make the senior team and to kind of achieve that milestone for me was huge. And to do it and to like get that call on the same day, it was just like full circle. I'm like, I've been, my brother's motivation was a big part of, how I played and the player I tried to show up as, and just constantly used like his legacy and his memory to be a better person, to be a great player, and honor his name. So to get to say yes and join the team, and gosh, it was crazy. I like think back to it. It takes me like right back to that moment.
That I have chills right
Same,
now.
dude.
Like I love those stories of you saying you went to camp and played the best that you ever have. It's like those are storybook moments, where it's like this is the last go I'm going to give it, and then you absolutely dominate, and then you get that phone call. That shit is
On
amazing.
that day, what an accomplishment.
Oh, it's amazing.
Whoever believes people are looking out for you, how could you not in that
Seriously.
exact moment? And then just some awesome ones to talk about
absolutely.
in that jersey. The U18, you scored an OT goal to win a gold medal, first Team Canada women's gold in U18 ever. So tell us about that, and then tell us about 2 Four Nations. We got one coming up this year, and you were in the 2 tilts against USA.
Seriously, Jesus
shootout,
Christ,
OT,
yeah.
shootout win, OT loss, but chaos. So talk about that U18 moment and the Four Nations for us.
Yeah, I mean, U18s was like you're just so young and you're putting on the maple leaf for the first time, and like I think like I said in high school, I had kind of separating speed from the others around me, so I could really use it to my advantage, and I felt like I was, very offensive in those years and was utilized in every scenario. I was the captain of that team, and so I was like just such an honor to be like one representing my country, but to like lead that team. And right before we went into overtime, it was it was my worst game of the tournament. And I remember being like, I got to pull my shit together. Like, we're going into overtime here. And I've probably turned the puck over twice. That led to goals against. Like, I got to get my shit together. Anyways, we went into the locker room. Going into overtime, we had a huge, like, comeback late goal. And we're in Chicago, right? And so we have, like, half the arena. No, well, not even half the arena, but, like, the Canadian core group is just, like, stuck in the corner. My parents are there. I hadn't even seen my mom yet. She like flew in from the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan, connected a million times, was delayed, got in just like for game time. And so I'm like thinking of that moment, like we're obviously from all over the country, and this like, those teams, those tournaments are just like, this is the roster. These are, you kind of become instant best friends in those moments. Then you go on back to your respective teams and places and where you're from. But we had a moment where we all stood up together, and I remember we had this like team song or something. We all stood up together. We had a moment, and it was like, we're winning this thing. We're going out and we're winning this thing. And I think it was the first or second shift actually it was the goal went in, but it was still a blur. Like, it was a developing play, and I just remember being like, again, I got to get my shit together. Went to the net, tipped a goal in. The next thing you know, I was, couldn't breathe and on the
Dog
bottom of a pile.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
But beating US for the first time, like on their territory,
Yeah.
that was pretty surreal.
Yeah. Take it easy. Don't rub it in. All right.
Yeah, we could go further with that one if you want.
Oh yeah, seriously.
And then Four Nations, was that a really cool experience?
Yeah, Four Nations was awesome too, because you just had the best 4 European top teams, right, competing against each other. And it was the first like tournament of the year that you could showcase yourself to actually make the World Championships roster.
Yeah.
So my experiences at Four Nations were positive because I had good showings, and it led to me making the Four Nation or the World Championship rosters as well. But yeah, those tournaments are short and quick, and you just like, it's such a big part of the whole process. Like, it is such a huge thing in the women's game, like summer camps, fitness testing, like they're always monitoring you. You have these camps, these training camps, these tournaments, and like every chance you can to prove yourself. Like, I think there's a 0.002% chance in Canada of making the national team.
That's wild.
Like, but just the numbers of girls playing hockey in Canada, yeah, it's crazy. So anytime I got to put on the jersey, I didn't care what the tournament was. I'm just like, I'm going to live this dream out to the fullest and appreciate every moment, every tournament, every game. And I have, so many great memories of representing my country.
Yeah. Speaking of the Four Nations, do you think, this year doing it in place of the All-Star game, do you feel like the vibes are there? Like, there's kind of anticipation building already? Do you see any of the guys, talking about it? And do you think that's going to be that same level of intensity, even though it's in the middle of the NHL season?
I mean, I hope so. Like, I think it's going to be something, obviously, right? Because it's different. And I think it's just going to be unreal. I mean, I think it's going to be an unreal way to showcase the All-Stars, to be honest.
Totally.
Like in a way where they can like all come together and represent their countries. Like that's the
Little
best.
extra
Like it's going to
motivation.
embrace a
Yeah.
whole like the totally. And like some of like obviously you think about Canada, US, like we put ourselves in our own category, but like Sweden and Germany, and I've had the opportunity of working in both those countries, coaching, like all they live for and grow up in is like representing the Swedish national team and the German national team. Like those guys take so much pride in being from like coming from those countries specifically. So to me, like just seeing the representation on the world stage in their respective country is like, you just can't beat it. I think it's going to be unreal.
Yeah. I completely agree. All right, guys, by now you know we have joined up with BetMGM for the entire season because they are the best sports betting app in the game. Every single need that you possibly have, BetMGM has you covered. And they're taking care of you right now. If you sign up with AF200 when you download the app and make an account, we're doing an unbelievable bet get situation. If you bet $10 on any sporting event, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets right into your account. So pick hockey if you want, pick NFL if you want, pick Champions League soccer if you want. Make that $10 bet at the minimum, and you're going to get $200 of bonus bets right into your account. No other sports betting app is taking care of you the way BetMGM is. CP and I got bets all day long, all week long. We're getting all the action. We're on a bit of a heater right now, so make sure you join in on the fun with us, checking out the page all the time for all of our picks, and get in on the action on all the other sports you want, because that deal is the best in the game. BetMGM is the best in the game. Sign up today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 21 plus only. In Arizona, Colorado, D.C., Massachusetts, Maryland, North Carolina, Virginia only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in Ontario and Puerto Rico.
Got to talk to you guys really quick about our awesome partnership with CBDMD. I love these guys. They are absolutely changing the game for me when I'm out and about. Frankly, in my entire life, because we can all use a little bit more focus. We could all sleep a little bit better. We could all relax a little bit better. And I'm doing, CBD's got everything. They've got gummies. They've got every droplet you could ever imagine, okay? But what I'm really loving is the THC drink mixer because, like I said, it's actually changing. It's revolutionized my time out. 28 servings per bottle of this stuff. There's black cherry flavor. There's unflavored. How much sugar? 0. How many carbs? 0. It's vegan. It's gluten-free, okay? And it's 3 milligrams of THC and 3 milligrams of CBD in there. Pop it in my drink and have myself an absolute time. I'm doing it when we're hanging. I'm doing it when we're watching hockey. I'm doing it on the golf course. It's just the dream setup for me. And because they want the dream setup for you, if you go to cbdmd.com and use promo code FRIDAY, that's FRIDAY, you get 30% off and you're going to get free shipping. That's 30% off and free shipping. That is not a joke. Okay, so we are partnered up with CBDMD right now. You need to be partnered up with CBDMD right now.
You mentioned earlier talking about, after you finished up at Cornell, you kind of had conversations with people about what to do now. And, after all this playing for the national team, having such success at Cornell, you wind up in Calgary playing for the Inferno and the C-Dub. And at the time, that's the best women's hockey league in North America. You come in there, like Chris said earlier, your rookie year, you're captaining the All-Star team, which is absurd. And then in 2016, you bring home Calgary's first Clarkson Cup and pummel Montreal 8-3.
Boom.
So I want to hear about the C-Dub. What was it like playing? And then also, at this point, do you kind of have, when you're in Calgary, when you're playing for the Inferno, and you get that championship, you get that Clarkson Cup, how much of you is like, all I do is win? Because it's like you have all those titles in the ECAC. And I mean that in a good way. It's like you clearly, it shows in your coaching and the fact that you've been a captain on so many of these teams. You are a part of a lot of huge victories in the teams that you've played for. And how much of that do you think becomes almost an addictive element of your game when it's like, listen, like we're here, we're having fun, we're playing the game that we love, but we're going to win. Like, let's get this done.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, you guys are way nicer than I heard. I mean, I'm just like, I feel like I've failed so much more along the way that I've succeeded. Like truly, maybe we always remember things of the trying times of the process, but
Yeah.
I'm ultra ultra competitive. Like if, you know, you want to say, let's go play pickleball, I'm like, let's go. I'm
Yeah.
going to go find the best racket, new shoes. Let's go. I don't know how to play pickleball, but bad example of like my approach to everything I do. It was the same way as a player. Like I was just all in all the time. And to a point where like I injured myself in college. I broke my wrist at Cornell, like just running into the wall in practice after I got back from Europe. It's like I forgot that the rink size changed or something. Like I was all in to everything I did, crash and burn mentality. But I think it honestly, it definitely helped me find success in the game. As a player, as a leader, on all the teams I was part of, I was proud to be on, you know, a winning team or to create winning cultures. But I think even more so now, I appreciate those years as a coach, because you take a little piece of everyone you meet, right? Like coaches, teammates, you take the good, you take the bad, and then you're really shaped into like now in the position that I'm in as a coach, like who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up every day? And like that ultra competitive mindset is still me really grounded in who I am and how I approach my work, how I approach the guys. But I would trade in any of those years. And you don't remember the championships. Like you really don't, you know, I don't even know where my medals are. I think my mom has them in the closet and a keepsafe somewhere at home, but like my medals are somewhere, and but you remember each team. Like you could tell me that U18 2010 medal. I can literally go left to right, every player in the locker room who was on that team. And I don't know where they are in life, all of them now, but you remember the people. And so I'm just like, I think back to all of those times, those years, winning, losing. Funny enough, you say it, like I'm at the Brook Street Hotel in Ottawa, where we stayed both years, back-to-back years, when we won the CWHL and then lost the final year. Like it was so odd coming back here full circle yesterday. I'm like, I've been here. Like, we won a cup here. We like celebrated over that little bar over there after. Like this is where it all happened.
Just as like I was spraying champagne on that wall just a few years ago. This is crazy.
Yeah. We just rode by to the bus. I'm telling Dave that same story.
I was actually just about to lead into that. What was life like in the C-Dub? Like, were you? Because I mean, we've had the pleasure of having a bunch of the gals on the P-Dub teams and talking about how, you know, some of them are still working other jobs while they're playing. Were you guys working? Were you living together? Were you hanging out? And you know, like we just said, were you guys ripping it up and partying after winning championships? Like, give us some of the lifestyle vibes.
Yeah, honestly, oh man. I mean, aside from like the level of the players that were in the league were all national team players. Like we had the best players in that league. And honestly, it would be the same quality of league as the PWHL is now in terms of pulling players from all the national teams, the top college players making those teams. The only difference was we were not paid to be there. So we had to fundraise. We had to do all kinds of crazy things, which like is so sad to talk about now, but that was the reality of like how far we've come. Like I will never forget. I was part of the national team program. So like I had, you know, sticks provided, equipment provided, but I remember like sharing my sticks with my teammates, my line mates. Like, you want to use my curve and flex? This one will work for you. Like literally, I'm not kidding. Like we would spare our own stuff that we were given extra because like the team budgets were so limited. To the players that were working full-time jobs, we practiced at like 9 p.m. at night twice a week. And if you were with a national team, you had skill sessions in addition to that provided. But like we were training like true professional athletes every morning, every day. Then half of our team were going to work their full-time jobs, and then we'd come together at night. It was like honestly like adult beer league hockey type hours that we were given, but also our coaching staff was working full-time jobs, and they were like pretty much volunteers. They were probably given a little bit of stipends to like coach us, and they were great coaches. But times are really like, thinking back now, like we kind of chuckle and laugh like the good old days. Like it was literally, we had to do so many different things. And I mean, I do remember too, like one of the things I think about now and just like think about how far the women's game has come. We had to put on raffle, like 50-50 raffle aprons and raise money, fundraise at the Flames games in like the booster clubs.
Way.
Like give out our season. Yeah, like that was real life. That was less than 10 years ago. Oh man, like things like that. So like you just appreciate so much how far, and like people sponsored us, people gave us money for sure. And like there are some true supporters of the women's game, but
Yeah.
other than world championships and the Olympics, it was like the women's hockey kind of got forgotten in those years in between.
Mm.
So yeah, times have changed. I'm so proud now that these girls are making a living because they have always have been true pros that treat their training, their work, the job. Just we kind of always chuckled back when I played like back check, forecheck, no paycheck, and so like now that's not a thing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we could
first
laugh.
of
It was
all.
real
Yeah,
time.
yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. It's awesome that you were a part of, building the foundation that allows the PW to be where it is today. I mean, it's a shame that you had to kind of go through those grinding years, but at the same time, probably some amazing memories in that run. And now to say that you were a huge part of
Yeah.
what it's become now is unbelievable. Love that.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the last thing, like for me, I was working. I was a communications director. I was volunteering at a child abuse center in Calgary, and I was actually my boss, or like my boss was Sheldon Kennedy. So from just what I was doing on the ice and skating and training every day, like when I wasn't at the rink, I was bored. I was coming out of college where like we had a full schedule of,
Yeah.
those are my early years out of college. I was looking for things to do and to apply myself. And obviously with everything Sheldon stood for and his advocacy and his whole journey in life and everything he came through, I felt like I was gifted such a strong leader and mentor as a young professional. Like now the coach in me appreciates those years where like I was training full time, but then after practice I would go volunteer, and then it became a full-time job, and I was going all around the city through season and in the summers, raising money, supporting Sheldon, doing a bunch of communications, PR stuff for him. Just honestly, like advocacy and child abuse prevention, like really good stuff in the community that I also are such, incredible years for me in my development as a professional.
It's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Jess, you said something about coaching philosophy that I thought was so eye-opening that I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned this earlier today, but that your skating was always your huge strength, and when you're thinking about weaknesses as a player, you wanted to work on weaknesses to try to become a more all-around player. But a sports psychologist, I believe it was, said to you, in a sea of incredibly talented players, don't lose sight of what makes you special, right? And keep building on that, keep expanding on that, because how else are you going to separate yourself? And that is something that's stuck with you, something you ask your players, what do you do best? What has that philosophy gotten out of the players in your eyes? How has that worked for you?
Honestly, I think for me, it's a huge piece of what I do. I all of the different ways I think you try to access a player, right? Like establishing a respect and a trust with a player early on is crucial. Like that's our job as coaches, is we're trying to connect with them and understand them as people first and foremost. And I think that's honestly, I'm proud, and I think like the values that I've tried to stick true to as a person and as a coach have like led me to my professional success and got me to this point. And something like that example you just talked about, helping a player identify and really stamp down that blueprint of who they are at their best. Like it's a remarkable activity if you just sit with someone and ask them, like, tell me who you are at your best. Like if I had to ask you right now, give me the 10 best qualities of yourself, like it's actually hard to do, because like we know who we are, and for sure we have confidence in like our ability and our our knowledge in certain things, but like to actually write that down and then to like live that out, there's a little bit of like, well, there's a lot of accountability in it. There's also a huge space for empowerment. Like that's kind of a vulnerable conversation. And so I find, sitting with a player, and I've already done it here in Seattle, I did it all through my time in Coachella. It feels a lot more like sports psych in ways, but exactly that. Like, who are you at your best? What makes you you? How do we consistently see this version of you every night? Like, how do you feel when you're at your best? How do you operate when you're at your best? How do you like to be coached? Like, what types of things do you need? Do you need a pat on the back, or do you need like a hard, tough love? Like, you can fucking be better.
Yeah.
Like, but it comes from a place of love and care. And I think just being in the trenches with them. And so I think that question that sports psych, asked me at such a pivotal time, like I would take feedback, or I would take feedback so critically, and I would go down a rabbit hole of like, oh, I have to do this. I'd work on my shot or something. And all I would do is shoot pucks, shoot pucks, shoot pucks. And I remember checking in, and when they asked me that, like, what makes you you? I'm like, my skating. And they're like, so when did you work on your skating last? I'm like, I didn't think I needed to.
Yeah, right.
But now that you say it, it's like, that's what separates you, or for me, that's what separated me from the pack. And like, the more you shy away from working at your best game, the quicker you can fall, start trending away from yourself. And so my job, I just find it's the best activity is to sit with the player and make sure they know that you see who they are at their best. They know who they are at their best. And now you can approach every single day from a place of honesty, respect, communication can be clear. They know you have their best interest and that you're in the trenches with them every single day. That's a huge part of who I am as a coach.
Yeah, it's amazing. How often do you feel like you see their confidence coming out more and more with that approach? Because I just think it's such a unique and important approach now. Like the sports psych element of it is just such a good way to tap into their mentality. And we were talking to Philip Forsberg a couple of weeks ago, when you're in a rut and you're not scoring and you're a goal scorer, we kind of asked him, how do you get out of those? What are things that you practice? And it must be awesome for you as a coach to see these players that you're working with when you tell them, hey, focus on the thing that you're great at, and then watching them excel with that mentality. That must be the coolest feeling in the world for you.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's pretty cool. And I think I can confidently say that when I've done these activities, or usually start that way with a player, or try to identify a time or a moment where, like, yes, they're in a rut, they're struggling, sit with them, have that conversation almost immediately. I'm not kidding you. Almost immediately the next game, pucks in the back of the net, or like you immediately see results. And it's this total shift. Like, I mean, I had this conversation with Matty Beniers, I don't know, 5 games ago. He hadn't scored yet, and boom, next game, 2 goals, broke through it. Like, it's not about that conversation, but I think it's all about empowerment and feeling. And all of a sudden they're reminded, and it's like some of that weight just goes like, yeah, I can make those plays. I make those plays 98% of the time. Like, just has to like click, or almost it's like a space in time where they can forget about all of the, like, challenges or the turnovers or all of the things that are not going their way in that moment. It just kind of like dissipates and they're back on track. So I think it's huge. And you see the shift pretty quickly. That's usually just a hard reset button.
Yeah. I love that. It's amazing.
It's awesome.
Now that we're talking about coaching, you obviously take the switch into coaching, and then you've just continued to break that ceiling and have a list of firsts that are so amazing. You started in high school, and then in 2021, you're the assistant coach of the German men's national team at the World Championship. Unbelievable. Then 2022, you're in Coachella, first female assistant coach of the Firebirds in the AHL, another first, and now here we are in the NHL. It's unbelievable. But in Coachella, you're working with Bylsma, who is, such a great coach, such an amazing guy. What has the experience been like for you since you've taken this jump into coaching men's and just being the first so many times to doing what you're doing? And no doubt there are, I'm sure, moments where, the imposter syndrome creeps in, where you're thinking like, God, am I good enough for this? And, can I do this? Are people taking me seriously? And, you don't have to name names, but who are some voices or some personalities in the space that really kind of helped you make sure you knew how great of a job you're doing, which you absolutely are. So how has that journey been these last few years?
Oh my God, you touched on so many different thoughts and topics. And I guess the first thing I'll say is, like, it's been such a surreal journey, because obviously for me, when I transitioned from playing to coaching, I just knew that when I decided coaching's for me, or when I decided that I was going to stay in this game, and I didn't actually see what I'm doing now, to be honest. I love teaching skating. I knew I loved being on the ice, and I had a different approach and philosophy to teaching skating specifically. And I found myself kind of like organically going down this path. And almost like people talked about like breaking barriers, and I get that question a lot of what that was like. I'm like, I was almost like going through that on my own process because I was proving to myself as I was just like sharing my passion and my love for teaching and being on the ice. I was kind of afforded and gifted like new opportunities with like higher level players and traveling to Europe and like a new challenge every if it happened quickly. It was like every 6 months I almost had like a new platform to like prove myself as a person and as a coach. So when I got to World Championships and then when Dan hired me with Coachella, after World Championships, I had nothing. Like I returned back and I was gonna potentially sign a contract in Switzerland in the top league, but I wanted to stay in Germany because that's like I was just my heart was there at that time. I was with the German national team. I wanted to go back to Yale. There was probably 3 or 4 teams where the ownership team didn't want to hire me because I was strictly because I was female. I'm not kidding you. That was the coaching staff interviewed. I want to do this, but it was strictly like ownership and management. Won't name teams, but I was so like lost in how am I actually going to stay in this league? Like I want to be at this level. I've now proved to myself I could work at this level. I was working with NHLers in the off season, skating with, a number of players, both rookie players and veteran players. I knew my messaging and my approach was hitting. I was confident. So when I did get those no's over and over and over, like you start to feel like that imposter feeling of like, maybe I don't belong in the space, or like, maybe it's just going to be that much harder for me. And I have to keep plugging away at this. And usually success kind of silences the noise, or that's usually eventually what can lead to the next opportunity. So I guess full circle, when I got then an opportunity to go to Switzerland, it just didn't feel like the right fit. Like for me and that team specifically, just didn't feel right in that moment. I don't exactly want to give reasons why, but it just knew it wasn't right. So I said no, and I still had no other job technically on a team level lined up. So I was like, well, I'll go back to doing what I do. I'll stick at it. I'm sure I'll get another opportunity, or I'll just keep working at it and find a way. And kid you not, a day later, I'm sitting in Vegas in the Cosmopolitan lobby, and I'm on my email going to run a USHL futures camp. And so I'm like, it's Vegas, so the setting's a little odd, smell like cigarettes and everything. And I'm just trying to get myself ready to go to the rink. And I get this random like email to my power skating website and Mary Beth, his wife, all their initials combined, his personal email, just like 2 sentences, coaching inquiry, interested in having a conversation with Jessica Campbell about coaching position. Like, that's it. Dan Balsma. I'm like, what? Dan Balsma? I'm like, I'm spelling this right. Like, yes, this is Dan Balsma.
Is this a different Dan Balsma?
So I respond. I'm like, okay, this could be spam, but we laugh about it now. But yes, he reached out, and what's interesting that you said is like that feeling of like you can doubt yourself in any job, in any space. I think like success obviously usually leads to more confidence, and as you fail along the way or you pivot, like for sure you could start to doubt yourself. But I think for me, what keeps me grounded every day and where I'm at, and every team and the step that I've taken, whether it's, working in Europe to then the AHL level to now getting here and doing it on this stage, I've always come back to day one doing the work myself. And I had to start my business on my own, come up with my own brand. And it wasn't about my brand. It was about who I showed up as a coach every day, my product on my on-ice skates, what that experience was like, the impact, where they, like, I was critically, like, so important for me that the guys were getting better, or that they were receiving good feedback, and just that the material and the curriculum that I was putting forward was at this level to meet the needs of them being, impact NHL players. So I was always striving to just be the best coach that I could be. And I think my time in running my business, I was proving to myself that I could do it at this level on a team setting, but I was plucking away one player at a time. And as the numbers started to grow, I've said this recently to the Toronto and Montreal media, like I wholeheartedly believe now my confidence comes from the players at the time giving me the permission to believe that I belonged here by showing up for me, by showing up for my skates, by paying for my services. And so when those thoughts of imposter syndrome start to trickle in, or, you know, that you start to like go 5 games in a row, the power play is not scoring, you're like, how do I get this thing back going? You start to like go back to the drawing board. That's what I'm like, no, like same thing with the player. It's like, I know what I'm doing. Like, just go, keep with it, keep pushing. It's eventually just gonna turn right around, and that's the game of hockey, right? So every single chapter from playing to coaching specifically, I've taken a piece of all of that, and I think it's really shaped and helped me to be ready for this job, to be prepared every day to be at this job and at the level that the NHL demands and calls for, really.
Yeah. No, and it's just so amazing to hear, and you know, I know you've heard this before, but your journey and the way you've battled and earned every opportunity is just so good for young girls who are thinking about coaching. It's good for anyone in this space or other spaces who are just kind of fighting an uphill battle, it feels like, and they need to find ways to believe in themselves. And, you know, I hope you know that opportunities don't come from luck. They come from your hard work and doing a good damn job, you know, and like you have done that. So it's why all of these things come. It's why that almost spam email from Dan Bilesma comes in. It's because you're great at what you do. And it's really awesome.
That is insane.
Know?
I don't know if everybody
Appreciate
knows
that
story. The timing of that is unbelievable. And the bravery, by the way, to turn down that job. Oh my, after getting all those no's and getting that offer, and you don't have to get into it, but you know, whatever wasn't feeling right, that is so...
Thank God it didn't feel right.
Yeah. And here's the difference between me and Jess. Jess turns that job down and is in the Cosmo lobby grinding on some hockey clinic. I'm at the Cosmo craps tables when the email comes in.
Trying to
figure out what...
You're trying to make some more money so you can have extra scratch while in Switzerland.
Yeah, I got no job. I got to make it all on the craps table. I missed the email because I'm on a heater, you know, and then I lose that later and I'm not coaching anyway. So that is just...
So the message is be like Jess. Don't be like us.
God.
Oh boy, I don't know.
Jess, you
That's
said
awesome.
you just said talking about any promotion, there's stress, right? When you get to when it becomes the NHL job, and it's like, okay, here we go. Were you able to compartmentalize it like you just said? It's another 6 months, another new challenge. It's fine. It's another new challenge. This is what the path I was on. Or was there like, holy fuck, because now we're at maximum eyeballs and everything. How did you deal with that mentally?
Yeah, first game were you sitting on the bench like, holy shit, this is happening? Okay,
so this is funny you even asked this question. So like, the one thing about the American Hockey League is the schedule, the demands, and even my first year in the AHL. I think I had more of those moments my first year in the AHL.
Really? Wow.
Than I necessarily feel now. And it's totally 100%. It's the largest stage in the game and in the world. So of course, like I feel all the emotions of the responsibility that comes with my work and the team and my job. So I feel all those emotions. But the night before the home opener, my family all came to town. My best friends came to town. I had all the girls over and we went for dinner. And she was my line mate, Bailey Brown. She's total gem. She's just like, Jess, like, you're way too chill right now. I'm freaking out about tomorrow. And I'm like, why are you freaking out? She's like, well, I mean, like, you're like super calm. Like, are you nervous? Like, I'm nervous. I'm like, no, I mean, for me, it's honestly, it's just another day at my job. Like, when you've already done 2, even count playoff run seasons to the very end, it's like I haven't really taken a break from going to the rink every day, to be honest, in 3 years. Like summers, you kind of blink and they're gone and you're back in another hockey season. So I'm like, I've been at this and so deep in the work and the video and all of, like, you ask any player that turns to coaching eventually, you have no idea the demands and how many hours the coaches put in. And I love it. Like I never feel like I'm working 9 to 5, probably working 9 to 9 or
for sure
16-hour days sometimes, but you don't feel how much you're in it. And so when you come to those moments and they're like for me, opening night behind the bench, I was more so overtaken by the emotions of what everybody else was feeling as part of that moment.
Totally.
Because it's like, it's true. And you might have heard this analogy before, but like when you're in the glass bottle, it's hard to like, you don't know what the label is. You don't know what people see or how they see it from the outside. You're like, you're in it. You're stuck in it. And so I've been so much in it and focused on what I'm doing in it that the reception and the feel and the emotions on the outside, I kind of like, I have to compartmentalize those things, like you said. And being behind the bench the opening night, I was like, wow, this is the National Hockey League. Like this production, all of this is unbelievable, right? But I still approach my work every single day as just another day at the rink, another day at the job. And that keeps me really grounded and level headed to not like ride the waves of the crazy emotions that hockey presents of itself.
Yeah. And I mean, I do want to point out, I think it's, this journey, as we've said a bunch of times now, has just been so awesome to watch. And I can't even imagine the roller coaster it's felt like for you. But, as fans and as people who think it's so incredible what you've done and what you've already accomplished, it's pretty sweet seeing all those moments where, I hope you've noticed after every game, it feels like all these coaches around the league are taking their time to come up to you, give you a hug, congratulate you, say how good of a job you're doing, because that doesn't happen often. And that's, sure, yes, you are breaking barriers as the first female assistant coach in the NHL, but I think that speaks more to the incredible job you're doing. And it's also really cool for us talking to guys in the leagues, like Mo Sider's obsessed with you. He's like truly the greatest coach of all time. And then, we had Montour on and he's like, Jess is amazing. This is so cool. So it's just like the impact and the footprint that you're already leaving on the National Hockey League is electric. It's so cool.
Geez, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know. I think, I'm more different and new to the guys than perhaps how I see them. Like,
Sure,
I just see them as a person that has incredible gifts and talent. And so how I approach them from a place of care and respect, and this is awesome. Like every player, I mean, I think about our team, but you bring up Mo Sider. I'm like, I get to work with him at World Championships. Like, how can I have an impact on Mo Sider? What things, like, oh, he loves being on the ice. He loves working on his game. Awesome. Let's do stuff pre or post practice, like little skills work, little details that just like things that we can, relish in together. And I don't know, I've just been a huge believer in like stick true to your guns, like what makes you, and really only good can come of it. And I think that's just like, that's how I operate as a person. That's how I try to show up every day. And I respect people that really walk the talk, right? Because at the end of the day, then you can be proud of what you leave behind or the impact you have. And for sure, like you can't make everybody happy, and especially in coaching when you're having to make decisions. But ultimately, I think honesty and communication, and I've had also now been able to leverage my relationships with players that I've worked with, like Brent Seabrook, great mentor to me. Like obviously he's out of the game now. He's still coaching his kids and stuff. For Shea Weber, like those guys I talk to regularly. And Brent's just always like, hey, like when you're having to make tough decisions on the power play, go right up and talk to them. Like I'll never forget those coaches that like gave me, like, even if I hated them in that moment, didn't want to know why, but need to know why, like I walked away better for it. And then I actually respected that coach even more and wanted to play harder for that coach.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and anything in life, like honesty is hard to come by. And so just having really good mentors and also leveraging and relying on the guys that I've created good, strong relationships with and bonds. Like, hey, if I'm like stuck and, don't know how to handle a situation, I'm calling those guys. Like, what's the right approach to this? Like, you've been through it, you walked through it on every different level and had success along the way. So, I mean, Mo is a special one. Monty's he's a special one too.
Yeah. That's awesome though. To be able to pull from that.
It's amazing.
Jess, the squad, I actually have I don't know if you can see, but I have my Seattle Spunk
t-shirt
on.
sweet.
Yep. So 2 years ago, we got really behind the boys, and we were like in the preseason or in the playoff predictions, we were like, I don't know, that Seattle squad's got spunk. I'm into this. And then they had the great run, upset the Avs in 7, unbelievable. And then, last year, a bit of a step back. And then you come into this season, and I think you guys are maybe right at 500 right now in a very crowded Pacific, I will say.
Yeah.
So what's the vibe? How's the energy in the room? What are you guys feeling? What are expectations for the season? Talk to us about that.
Honestly, I think the greatest thing about our team right now is that we have a developing group. Like, to me as a coach, the best feeling is knowing that like we don't even feel like we've scratched yet upon the potential that we can become this year. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, yeah, we're 500, but the games that probably 2 or 3 games that we didn't come up with, those are games we should have had. Like, we outplayed those opponents, or I feel like we outchanced them. And so it's, those games eventually are going to turn into wins. But I think more importantly is we have a locker room that is on track and trending in the right direction of the way that the changes and just all of the new implementations that we've tried to make on many levels. There's some familiarity to our system from last year for sure, but personnel wise, like we have to up and down our lineup. We have to get scoring and contributions from everyone. That's just the makeup of our team. And so it's a great challenge as a coach, right? Trying to maximize every player and needing every player every night. We just, it's moments in a game where certain players for sure, and you respect your opponent, could take over games. And if you have to limit what you give those types of players. And so I think we're in a good learning process right now of like, we can't afford to give up those very fixable mistakes, and we're learning from them. We're starting to see them diminish in our game. And I think 2 nights ago against Montreal, we saw a product of our team up and down our lineup, scoring from everyone. Special teams was great. Shut down Montreal's strongest guys. Also with special teams, like we know where we're at, and I think we also know how far we can go still. So from now, and I hope we're having a conversation again at the end of the season where we're like, holy shit, like you guys, Seattle Spunk is back.
Let's go.
Get just a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Where do you even get that shirt? That's unreal.
Jess, we made it.
Yeah.
We made it. That's we started saying Seattle Spunk, and then our fans like
you guys might need to.
Yeah,
I will send you.
We're going to send you
branch
one.
off and sell those.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
100%. We're
perfect.
sending you one as like just I'm like clip that right now. The Seattle Spunk is back. Let's fucking go.
I love it. It's going to be vintage by the time I get it.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my God, it's absolutely amazing. All right, Jess,
Seattle Spunk.
we want to close you out with a game we play with all of our guests. It's called Pass, Shoot, Score. Pass, Shoot, Score is basically a ranking system. Passing the puck is great, but we like shooting a little bit more, and scoring is the ultimate goal. So we're going to give you a few things that we know you like, things that you have to rank, and we're going to start with jerseys. So Pass, Shoot, Score. Your Team Canada Reds, the Calgary Inferno Start the Spark jerseys, or the Kraken Blues.
Ooh. What? Am I talking strictly like aesthetic? Am I talking about
Yeah, I think like
what way do I take this?
I think what you think
Those are
looks
all-
the coolest.
It's meant to be tough.
Okay, I actually loved being in Canada whites. There's something about being in the whites that for me was like,
Okay.
so I'm gonna just have to say that that's pass because I didn't love our reds. I thought they were too like muted.
Good.
So white.
That's a good loophole. Good loophole.
Yeah.
Well done.
Wiggling out of this.
Yeah. And then, shoot would have to be the Start the Spark ones. Like, those were so damn cool. And they were all youth mental health jerseys, and then we were nothing close to purple, our team. So that was, like, such a cool thing to be part of.
Yeah.
But the Kraken Blue are electric, so they have to be Score.
Beauty. I love it.
Our colors are awesome.
Oh, my God. They're just so perfectly done.
It goes back to the shirt.
Yeah. So good.
Jess, give me a quick like top 3 cleanest NHL jerseys in your opinion.
Ooh. Oh, man. Okay, I'm putting ours in that category.
Okay, I love it.
I'm pretty sure I'm sure Montour would say the same thing because he said that to the media. That's where it started for him. The colors were sick. Who do I love? Who have I always? Okay, well, I feel like I can't say this, but I always grew up wearing red and blue, so Montreal to me is like iconic in Canada.
They're so good. It's I mean, come on, it's just a perfect jersey.
Yeah, and oh man, I really like God, I personally love Vegas.
Oh,
But, like when they rebranded or when they came out,
Yeah.
I was just really into it because maybe I was like the feminine in me loved the like gold touches and thought that
Yeah.
was just so cool and
Yeah.
like nobody else can do that but Vegas. So like I would have to throw
I love
Vegas
the
in there. And
Vegas
that might be
jersey.
just like a sleeper pick, but I'm gonna go with Vegas.
I love that.
That's a great answer.
People sleep on the V in the helmet
Yeah,
too.
correct.
Some people don't even notice
Correct.
that.
Okay, Jess, here's your
Yeah.
next category. Pass, shoot, score, Cornell bars. Okay? I've got the chapter house.
Dunbar's number one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shit.
So I've got the chapter house. I don't know how you say this right. Rulofs, chapter house,
Rulofs.
and Dunbars.
Oh, okay. So Chapter House is pass. Rulofs is 2 and Dunbar's.
Wow.
One, one,
Okay.
one, one,
The
one.
chapter house is an institution, I'm told. You didn't like it?
I didn't spend enough time there. We weren't allowed to have that much fun. Like I said,
Yeah,
I
you were in the
was-
library.
I
Yeah.
had fun at Dunbar's.
Okay. I mean, I love that Dunbar's was
Chapter
just
house.
right out the gate there.
Yeah.
What,
What was it about Dunbars?
yeah,
Why was
what was
that
the
spot?
vibe?
Have you been there? Have you
I
stepped
haven't.
foot
I
in
haven't
that
been.
place?
I haven't been to Dunbars.
Like the grossest place. I don't think it actually exists anymore. I think they sold it. It's so gross. It's like that epitome. Like if you have to describe a college bar to like your, grandmother, they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. Like that's the place that you're like, yeah, it's like 10 feet by 10 feet, and it's just popcorn and beer, and there's great music. Sweet Caroline's playing,
Yeah.
and everyone's talking hockey. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's
It's like a
beautiful.
place you want to get out of as fast as you are trying to get in,
Yep.
but then you're stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Cornell thing.
Next thing you know, you blink and you've been there for 4 hours,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh shit, it happened."
Right.
again.
Or when you have family and friends come to town, you're like, I have to take you on Dunbar's and only on Saturday because that's
Yeah.
the night.
Yeah. And Jess, when we were sourcing a lot of people that had gone there and stuff online about the best spots to ask you that question, you're so right. All of these places are gone now. Like Chapter House,
Yeah.
like burned down. Dunbar's is closed. Like
crazy.
everything is just disaster area. I was like, oh man, what
It's
a bummer.
so sad, to be honest.
Yeah, you hate to see it.
So sad.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
really psyched about this one. Here's your next one. This is something that you and I have in common. So this one's gonna be
Oh boy.
style and fashion. I know you're a big fan of that, and so am
Wait, we have that in common?
I. I'm a
Yeah, Dan's a big.
You're
fashion
not the
buff.
one wearing the spunk shirt.
Yeah,
I
he's in a
know.
knit
I-
sweater. I'm in a spunk t-shirt.
All right.
We're both in knit sweaters.
Yes.
Okay, we can
Come
do
on.
this.
Okay. So here's your fashion pass shoot score. Aritzia, Reformation, and the scarf you wore on the
Ooh.
bench when coaching for Team Germany.
You must have did your digging. Holy hell. Or you went on Google and you found that picture of me. The Spit and Chicklets found that picture too along the way. And, oh my God.
Looking like a flight
'Kay,
attendant.
pass,
coaching
pass.
Team Canada.
Yeah.
Pass. I was way too early in my career to say, they're like, do you feel comfortable? I'm like, yeah, I feel great.
Yeah,
Sure, no problem. Meanwhile, me and the other assistant coach are like, how can I wear this scarf in a way that nobody sees it?
Yeah.
They are making me wear the scarf. 3 or pass on the scarf.
Yeah.
That was atrocious. And for all the listeners, are going to go Google and find the damn scarf picture now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, our first game, we played Canada. Damon Severson, I grew up with and
Yeah.
skated with. He hops on the ice, of course, like playing Canada. And I'm like, Gates, night 1 at World Championships for us.
Yeah.
He's hops on for warm-ups. He's like, nice scarf, Jess. I'm like,
God damn it.
nice
Yeah.
to see you too.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Anyways, oh man. Okay, well, Reformation, I don't have a lot from there, but I love that brand. So I'll have to say shoot and score is Aritzia because I can do it all in Aritzia.
Yeah. I've heard a little inside source said that about 80% of your wardrobe is Aritzia. So that's good to know.
Yeah, I'm expanding now.
Yeah, good.
Good
But yes.
Good
Hey,
for you.
Jess, how did you pick out the fit for Game 1 NHL? Because you knew there was going to be 8 billion pictures taken. So,
Yeah.
how did that? What went into that thought?
All I was worried about was getting rid of all the scarf
Yeah.
photos on Google and replacing them with opening night.
Yep.
And now I
You
just
know,
I just set us back a year with
Yeah.
this right now.
It's okay. It's good to keeps me honest.
Yeah.
This opening night, I had two suits in mind. Last year we went on a streak in playoffs when I wore white. Like
Okay.
we
Interesting.
seemed to always win when I was wearing white. Not that white suit. So this summer I upgraded my wardrobe a little bit and got a new white suit.
Yep.
So that was like, I need a new white suit. And then I found a red velvet suit,
Sick.
which I've worn already this year, and it's
Yeah.
0-2, so I don't feel too good about
Yep.
the red
Yeah,
suit,
that's
but it's
done.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get over it. But I said to my best friend, do I go red or do I go white? And she's like, you got to go white. Like,
Yeah.
no man's ever going to wear a white suit.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
right.
it's a little dicey though. Like when I wear white on the bench, I'm not kidding you. Like there's Gatorade, there's
Yeah.
shit happens on the bench,
Yeah.
blood, all kinds of stuff happen. So I'm always in the trenches wearing white, but
It's so funny.
it's
It's a baller
it's just a
move.
good line
That's a good
to
one.
risk.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it.
And hey, and
Yeah.
just keep reminding the red suit what makes it special, what makes it stand out.
Yeah.
And it will get
I'll
there.
have to sit with it for a while.
It will
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah.
light.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a
It
win
will see
soon.
the light. Okay,
Yeah.
Jess,
It
here's
had a tough start in Dallas.
yeah, God, shit.
Yeah, true. Fuck.
Okay, here's your last one, Jess. Pass, shoot, score. This category is famous landmarks. Okay? Pass, shoot, score. Seattle's Space Needle, Coachella's giant Ferris wheel, or the world's largest oil can.
Oh man, that's too good. Everybody, I hope so many SAS listeners listen to this. Like, I appreciate that. Okay, come on, Coachella, Stagecoach. Okay, it has to be two. The Space Needle's cool, but I'm just gonna say like there's a lot of cool things about Seattle and Kraken are that
Agree.
is the
It's
coolest.
overrated. It's overrated.
So, Space Needle's just gonna be passed. There's a lot of cool places like that. And I feel like my proud prairie self has to say that the oil can's the best place. Because come on,
Come on, baby.
it has a 9-hole golf course.
Oh, I didn't even know
You
that.
could play it
Wow.
You could play it 10 times in a row if you wanted, and you really only have to pay $100. Like,
That's
it's just the best spot in
it's a great
southeast
deal.
corner of Saskatchewan.
That's
I
a
had
great
never
deal.
seen it. I had never seen it till we were getting ready for this interview. It looks sick. Like
Oh,
it's
I
really
like when
cool.
we found it. I
You're
was
like,
this-
where's this?
Literally, yeah. I was like, this is gonna be dumb, and then you look it up and you're like, wait, this
awesome.
looks awesome. It's crazy.
That little town, Rokerville, is such a cool little spot because, I mean, there's not much there other than a school, a hockey rink, which we have like the keys to.
Yeah.
So like that's just like that's just such a typical Canadian upbringing. But like this town, I get an email from the city or the town council lead, and she's like, we're converting the town to Krakenville for Christmas, and everybody's challenged to put up teal lights and
Oh,
I'm like, this only happens in small town Saskatchewan,
that's
where
amazing.
like the whole
Cool.
town is like knows our game schedule better than I do. Like
Yeah.
it's unreal. So I gotta give a shout out to the oil can. Come on.
Yeah. So-
we got to get a huge Kraken jersey made to put on the oil can.
yeah. Oh wow, that would be.
That's
special.
what I need.
That would be very
Yeah.
special.
That'd be iconic.
I love it. All right, Jess, this has been absolutely amazing. We can't thank you enough for coming on. Before we let you go, is there anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to plug?
No, you guys are awesome. I appreciate the good, candid, honest, real convo. You guys do great work. So thanks for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure, truly, and you're welcome anytime. We got to get you in studio sometime
Yes.
when you're in LA. That'll be great.
I'll mix when I'm almost lost this full tan. So next time
That's true. We
we'll
got to
extend
get
that stay in California
yeah. We got to get that going again for
next
sure.
spring.
All right. Well, thank you again. This
Yeah.
has been the best.
Absolutely. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Huge thank you to Soup. Just what a time.
What a
time.
So cool hearing firsthand more about her story, and just couldn't be rooting for her harder. And she didn't even need it. because she's just, like we said, all she does is win.
Dude, all she does is win, and she's such a beast. Some of the stuff, my favorite part, by the way, was the getting the Coachella job. That is actually insane.
Oh, such a cool story.
But every step of the way, her attitude has blown me away.
Oh my God.
I think that's like my biggest takeaway from this interview is just
Inspirational.
Yeah.
Truly
Very,
unbelievable
very
stuff.
much.
Huge thank you to Jessica Campbell. We could not be bigger fans. Absolutely love her. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview. That's it for us today at the Empty Nerds podcast. We've got craziness going on in the NHL. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Send it around. Get your friends listening. We love you. And until we see you next time.
do what Jess does. Skate hard.